I want to say something about the language I'm using here. Sometimes, oh shoot, who was it? I think it was Silver Soul, but sorry if it was somebody else. Anyway, it's a common idea. Like just like talking about what philosophy does as metaphysics because it's not quite physics. Look, the history here is Western science comes as an offshoot of philosophy. What we call the scientific method is a more refined set of methodologies of the skeptical method. Okay, Pyrrho of Elis said quite clear, you can read this in Outlines of Pyrrhonism, um, in Sextus's words, because Pyrrho didn't actually leave any writing, but assuming that Sextus got it right, so for all I know, this is Sextusism, that'd be awesome if we call it that. The Pyrrhonist assents to what appears to be the case, to appearances. They doubt the validity of any given sense perception, but they perform the statistical analysis. We perform that naturally. Our brains do. Okay, so it's not a scientific method. Okay, this philosophy of skepticism that believes in appearances, because we're not being as careful. Um, we don't state the hypothesis at this point, and we don't always follow these careful rules. But neither does science. Science goes from inspiration sometimes. Then you invent a hypothesis, and then so the part that is like science, the important part, the part that can and should go on in philosophy, is that your statements are relative to your perceptions of life and even other people's perceptions, which you have perceptions of, right? When I take somebody else's perceptions at face value, well, they are perceptions of mine. I have the perception of them telling me their experience. Okay, so I haven't gone beyond my perceptions really. Those are my perceptions of being told something, and the whole obvious nature of this interaction and how it's a big game of telephone, and there's some truth comes through and some noise. You know, that doesn't make this impossible to do. Now, science doesn't have a way really to deal with something like love in the same sense it can deal with mass, which it can measure so carefully. But look, it inches into that. You put someone in an fMRI and tell them think about their children, think about their partner. Now, you don't know if that individual loves their partner anymore or ever did. You don't know that. But you get statistical games. Okay? Now, when you count and compare and provoke perceptions and thoughts, okay, then you're doing something empirical with experiences, appearances. All right? If you have a persistent hallucination, then it enters in, but that's okay. Because if you could say I've this I'm crazy and I have this character named Bob and he says to me these things, and I've deduced that Bob is a really peaceful guy because here's what he's always saying. The fact that Bob rather is a hallucination doesn't change the fact that yeah, he's a hallucination, but that's what he's like. And that is empirical philosophy related back to real here and now type things. Okay. And the way in which I would like to make philosophy uh, more scientific is not scientific, it's just material. I want us to admit that logic, science, philosophy, all art, all human thinking takes place in time. It involves energy, okay, and space. That's the non-dualism. I want to deny this other part. And people that are like, I don't really see it as separate. I'm just using the word metaphysical because it's further. That's not what it historically means. I'm sorry. You know, It doesn't matter. You look it up in a dictionary in 2010 and it has some meaning. This is a argument thousands of years old, okay? Metaphysics is beyond physics, okay? Meta as a root word, it wouldn't have to mean that. It could mean abstractions, right? I could use the word metaphysics to talk, well, it's the abstractions off of physical things. So it's a relative thing. It's just saying that, F equals ma is meta, you know. It's more abstract. But that's not what metaphysics means. Metaphysics means non-physical, beyond physical, historically. That we're this concept that occurs in many languages that we've been discussing back to Greek times. Okay. And I know that this is still the case because we don't just get into a discussion about the word. It's a discussion about how ideas work. And really which ideas uh, are subject to a refutation. And we get into this issue, you know. The idea that there's irrefutable ideas. And as I said in my last video, when I find an idea that appears irrefutable, I just assume my brain's stuck. And that if given enough evolution, I could refute it that way. Right? Okay, cheers. Very interesting conversation, but so funny. Okay, bye.